I am glad to be here. I'll tell you about Gordon Cooper first. We're most recognized by the 1,200 full-time students that we have on a yearly basis. And we have 20-something programs, everything from graphic design and networking to a lot of the technical trades that you guys are very familiar with. We just this week, Amy's sister had the privilege of going out and announcing celebrations to all the kids that got accepted for next year. So that is always really good when parents are posting on Facebook how excited they are that their kids are getting into Gordon Cooper. That makes it a good week. On top of that, we have an adult training and development division, and that's where I am. I'm the Ag Business Coordinator at Gordon Cooper, and my job is to work with farmers and ranchers and help them figure out what's going on in their business, how they can make it better, and maybe some changes or some improvements that they can make. In the rest of my department, we have continuing education classes. Everything from our cooking and cake decorating classes that we have on almost as quickly as we can get them out, they fill up. We also have computer programming, things like QuickBooks, Advanced Excel, Advanced Word, some of those computer skills that people need. We offer those on a regular basis, and then a whole gamut of fun, self-improvement type classes. But we also have several coordinators, which is what I do, that work with clients. There's a small business coordinator. We have a bid assistance coordinator in businesses that are interested in doing government contracting. We have a coordinator that sits you down and says, okay, what have you got? What do you want to do? And they'll take you from A to Z. A lot of times, if you want to get government contracts, you can spend years trying to get through that process. We have someone that actually will help you do that. So I told you a little bit about Gordon Cooper, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about business planning. You know, business planning, even though I'm the Ag Business Manager, that's the biggest piece of my job, is to get farmers and ranchers to think of their business as a business. You know, a lot of people that are in farming and ranching, they do it because they love it. They do it because they enjoy it. They do it because maybe there's some family history there. And you know, when you translate that to small business, a lot of times that's the same thing. You know, it may not be agriculture, but it's very similar when you get into small business. If you think about that, my parents own a small business in town. My grandparents owned a small business in town. It seems to be kind of generational, I guess you could call it hereditary if you wanted to. So that's how we work with people. And what we're going to do tonight, I have a couple of things that I'm going to talk you through some of the questions and activities that we do with our clients. On your tables, Anya was asking about these. On your tables, you have red, yellow, and green paper. Just like a stoplight, red is going to be no, green is going to be yes, yellow, I'm really not sure. I don't want to commit to that. I'm really not sure. So I'm going to ask you some questions. If your answer is yes, hold up a green. If your answer is no, hold up a red. If your answer is I'm really not sure, you can hold up a yellow. These are some of the questions that we ask people on a daily basis when we see them. The first question, and this is always the hardest one, so let's just get it out of the way. I keep an accurate set of records for my finances and my sales. Yeah. Lots of green, some red. Yeah. I have an accurate and up-to-date inventory of my operation. Inventory is a little tougher. All right. One of the things that's often overlooked, I have a depreciation schedule for my business assets. And I'm using it. Okay. All right. Now, to follow that question very closely, I understand how depreciation works. Okay. All right. Now we're going to get a little more personal. I have a current net worth statement. Personal, business. Some of you, I promise you, When you go talk to anyone about a loan, that's the first thing they're going to want to see, that net worth statement. And the one thing that I tell my farmers and ranchers especially, don't ever let your banker fill in your net worth statement. You know, it's easy in agriculture. I tell them, don't ever let your banker tell you how much your cows are worth. Because he probably doesn't know. He's not in the business. He's in the banking business. We have some really good lenders in town that have done it for a while, and they can probably get pretty close. But that's one of my sticking points. Don't go in looking for a loan without a net worth statement, and you set your values, and then you can negotiate with your banker. But don't let them just assign it. Okay. Another one. I know my break-even point. Yeah. You guys are all small business, so you probably know. Breaking, yeah. Hopefully there's a little bit of spread between those two. Okay. I have made a cash flow projection in the past 3 years. I've made a cash flow projection in the past 3 years. Some of you have. All right. I have no problems obtaining credit at my bank. You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. But think about it in your mind. I have no problem obtaining credit. All right. Here's another one, and I promise you I'm guilty of this. I have a will and estate plan already prepared. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. You know, that's one of those where everybody has to be on board, and if somebody's not on board, it kind of slows you down. Okay. Very, very timely. I have an emergency disaster plan for my business. Emergency disaster plan. Yeah. I know, that's a tough one. I'm going to elaborate on that, not just to evacuate your customers, but if your building and your inventory sustains substantial damage, what's your plan? Yeah. What's your plan? Yeah. Amy, insurance would be one of the very first steps, but it shouldn't be the only part of your disaster plan. There should be some other things in there too. Okay. I am current on and understand the tax income laws. They change a group like this, you might be able to find somebody that can help you with that. Yeah, I mean, they change all the time. They do. Make sure that you at least have someone that you trust and that is knowledgeable that you can ask. You know, it's kind of like you guys were talking about the out-of-town people for hail. You know, don't rely on the people at Walmart to answer your tax questions. You know, just say Okay, one that will get you in trouble faster than anything. All of my permits and certifications are current. Good. I like to see that. That's something in agriculture. Oh my gosh. That's a tough one in agriculture. A lot of times they do it and they think it's good for 20 years. Make sure all of your paperwork is in line. I do an end of the year analysis to identify my strengths and weaknesses. What was the question? I do an end of the year analysis to identify my strengths and weaknesses. Okay. All right. And that leads me into the next piece of it. You know, if you don't do your strength and weakness analysis, I would encourage it. And it doesn't have to be a formal 40-page plan. You don't have to hire somebody to do it. Sit down and say, okay, where do I feel the most pressure and pain in my business? Where do I feel the most pressure and pain in my business? When do I feel it? Who is associated with it? And then start thinking about how you can fix it. But I want you to spend a few minutes to think about some of your goals. At least one long-term goal. Doesn't have to be a goal of improvement. It can be a goal of reducing whatever it is that's giving you fits. You know, if you have something that is constantly giving you trouble, a very viable goal would be to at least cut down part of that trouble. You know, you have to identify those things. People always want to focus on growth, what I can change, A lot of times if you just reduce, maybe that might help you out quite a bit. 2 other things on goals, and then we'll go back to some other things. You need to be able to measure it. You need to be able to measure it. You know, you can't just say, I want to grow. Set a goal of how much. And then put a time limit on it. You know, if your time limit is 20 years, that's great. If your time limit needs to be shorter than that, then put it on there. Give yourself that visual reminder. My deadline for this goal is now. You know, I'm a very type A person. I like to cross things off my list. I definitely don't like to have to start a new page and add it back on there. And this works really well for me. This works very well for me. That is it. Let me see on my time. Okay. I have a couple of cards, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. These are what I call company killers. These are some of the biggest issues that we talk to people about that they don't want to admit they have. You know, and it's funny because I'll go next door to the small business guy, and he says, oh my gosh, you know, I just talked to somebody else, and they're going through that exact same thing. So these are very common. I'm going to let you draw one. You got the Ace of Spades. Okay. Tell us what your company killer is.
Insurance.
Insurance. Now, this is not a paid testimonial. She did not promise me a cut in my rates. Insurance, make sure that you have adequate insurance. Make sure, you know, think about that worst case scenario. Don't ever do enough to just get by. Because if you come in and you have a catastrophic loss, which is very, very feasible in Oklahoma for a whole variety of reasons, unfortunately, you don't want to have to dip into your savings or sell your car or take away from your kids' college fund to have to replace that. So make sure that you are. And I think that you guys have some really good relationships here. Just, you know, sit down and ask her. If you're in a situation where maybe health is a concern, think about that long-term disability insurance. You know, if you're going to be if you're not going to be able to work for 18 months and you're the sole proprietor, that could be a problem. So think about all of those things. Don't just think about building equipment. Think about the whole gamut. Who else has one? What's yours?
Estate planning.
Estate planning. I've already kind of given my little piece on that. Every single person that I have ever talked to about estate planning, it never goes as well as they think it will. Never. You know, you can have the best family in the whole world, and it never goes as well as you think it will. And that, I mean, that's just a fact. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but it happens. It's not anybody's fault. You just need to be prepared for it. You know, especially like in my situation where we have family business and multiple siblings. You know, you either need to just be prepared to take what happens or to sit down and have those tough conversations. But that's one of my big platforms is you have to take care of business on that. You have to. What's the next one, Stephanie?
I've got marketing.
Marketing. All right. You know the old saying, if you build it, they will come? Well, with the internet and so many small businesses popping up, that's not always true. You know, you have to market. And small businesses, as a rule, always underestimate their marketing cost. Almost always, small businesses underestimate how much it's going to cost them to viably market. You know, you might spend $500, but you need to really sit down and think, okay, if I spent $1,500, would that be a greater return for me? The Agritourism Association in Oklahoma, they say that's the biggest pitfall that their customers have, is that they think I have this great pumpkin patch or you picket farm, and they don't do a good enough job marketing it. So, the last one, what have you got?
Helpers.
Helpers. You guys know what I mean when I say helpers?
Yeah.
Yes. You know, small business, we like our business. You know, we like things our way. A lot of times we might have family or friends that help us. And when we have restaurants that come in and talk to us about business planning, or maybe they're wanting to get a loan to expand, that's the first thing that we ask them. That's my timer, so I'm almost done. That's the first thing we ask them. How many people do you have working for you that eat out of your kitchen? You know, and a lot of times they think, oh, just 2 or 3. But when they really start looking at it, it's probably 7 or 8. You know, and that's okay if you can cover the cost and help. It may be worth it. You know, it might be beneficial to let them eat, and you know, and it may be something that you really feel like is valuable, or maybe your mission to help them with that. But I would caution you on your helpers. You know, and that kind of goes back to the estate planning. Be very careful when you hire a friend or a family member. You know, a lot of times they can be the best help, but sometimes not so much. So I'll end with that.